mean, it does come back to the question you asked at the beginning, Laura. If you had the opportunity to take such a public swipe at your ex, would you take it? Because I mean, we have those opportunities and I don't feel like we've ever taken a public swipe.
Are you living in fantasy land? I think I reckon this whole entire podcast was a swipe at our exes. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Laura.
I'm Brittany, and this feels a little bit weird. I feel like you swear to God you have like 3 or 4 weeks off max and you feel like you've got your learning plates back on.
Well, I mean, the reason why we feel like that is because you're not in the fucking country. You are coming. Okay, we never do this. Britt and I are always in studio together. We can always touch each other. I can rub my feet on her. I can see you.
Always put your gangrenous toes all over me and it's disgusting. That's why I had to move to the other side of the world temporarily, Laura, to get away from your rank feet.
Is that the only reason? Gangrenous toes.
Oh, no, I fell in love too, but also your feet.
Right.
Like bit of A, bit of B.
Okay, so Britt is still in Scotland. She's staying over there for a couple more weeks. I think you're coming back on like the 9th of February, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got like 2 weeks left, but I just wanted that little bit extra time with Benjamin.
Okay, well, she's coming back on the 9th. For a couple of weeks, we are doing some long-distance recordings, coming to you across countries, are we in different hemispheres? I don't even know. Yes, we are. Everyone's smiling.
Please.
Because I'm an idiot.
We're going to say producer Keeshia, keep that in. Laura, are we in different countries? What language do they speak over in Scotland?
Would you believe that I didn't do very well in geography at school? Would you believe that?
Shock horror.
I know.
No, I'm shocked. Do you know what's funny actually? My family came over to Scotland for Christmas and Ben's family came and we all met. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. But his family is Swiss. My family's obviously all Australian and everyone could understand everyone except no one could understand my dad. Everyone thought my dad was speaking another language.
Not even your own family can understand your dad, so I understand why that is the case.
He gets really relaxed. He has a drink and he goes full, like he's so ochre. Is that what you call it? Like a real, because he's not bogan. That's not the word. He's not bogan at all, but he's real ochre. So everyone was like, what language are you speaking? Dad's like, what are you talking about? It's English. It's Australian. Nothing. No.
He's like, I'm talking Central Coffs Harbour. That's what this is.
Yeah. Port Macquarie, you always say Coffs Harbour, but yeah.
I told you, geography, not my strong point. I don't know where you're from and I don't know where you are.
We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 500 episodes. We see each other every day, speak every day, and you always forget where I'm from.
Yeah. Not going to try and defend myself because it's kind of true. But anyway, guys, this is our very first episode back. We've had 4 weeks off, but we are back and we are resuming normal scheduling now. Here we are.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay, a bit of a catch up in terms of what has been happening over the past 4 weeks because, Britt, I spent most of my holiday in bed, but we'll get into that in a second. I feel like I have been kept up to speed with your life via social media. So I do feel like I know everything that has happened. And obviously, like we've spoken heaps. But as we do most recordings, we try and keep things a secret so that we can talk about it for the first time on the podcast.
Yeah, talking about a secret. So Laura and I do this thing where we're like, okay, let's withhold a little bit so we can like blurt it all out live. You hear it when we hear it. But you took that to the extreme. So Laura and I were texting. We follow each other on socials. But I hadn't logged on for a little while to socials whilst I was on holiday. Anyway, long story short, Laura and I are texting and then I think I said to you, like, have you been going out much? How was your Christmas? Blah, 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 blah. And you said, oh no, I'm dying of pneumonia. I've been in hospital. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how? You're like, oh, I'm almost on the mend. It's 2 weeks of like my deathbed. And I was like, this is you keeping secrets to the extreme. Like if you're going to pass away and I'm going to be left solo hosting this podcast, I probably need to be informed.
Producer Keeshia there is in the winds and she's like, I'm here. Don't worry. If someone dies, I'm ready to go. Roll me out. No, to be fair, I wasn't. She said, I wouldn't do that to you. You would. You absolutely would. I, to be fair, did not keep this.
Live stream your funeral. Let's do a podcast episode while we bury Laura.
Would get good hits though. If I died, that would be a pretty well downloaded episode, I reckon. If that's what we were talking, we should live stream it from the funeral.
If one of us passes away, I give you permission to do an episode at my funeral if you want.
Do we do it before or do we do it after? Probably after so that we can recap it.
What do you mean before? Before I die?
Before the funeral.
No, no, the whole thing. I think a live stream.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
I'm glad that we've established that. To be fair, it was touch and go. It was pretty close to you guys doing that. So like we had New Year's, we had Christmas. It was all beautiful. Matt's family came down. We had a really great time. And then maybe like 5 days into 2024, and I had all these plans. I was that dickhead that was like, sorry, I think you're also that dickhead who was like, it's my year of health. I did 5 days of Peloton.
Yeah.
5 days of Peloton workouts. And then on the 5th day, I woke up and I was like, I got a little tickle in my throat. Then the next day I was like, oh, my back hurts a bit. Then the next day I was like, why do my lungs hurt? And then it just was a fast track downhill after that. But the reason why I didn't tell you guys wasn't not because I was trying to keep content for the podcast. I was so sick that I didn't get out of bed for about maybe 12, 13 days. I didn't even really wake up. I just kind of stayed in bed. Matt was
It sounds like you're in a coma or self-induced coma.
Matt was incredible. He did everything. He took the kids. He just managed the house. He got them out of the house so that I didn't have to so that I could sleep. But it was just this unrelenting cough. And then it must have been maybe 2 weeks ago now. On a Sunday, I woke up this one and had been getting progressively worse every day. Couldn't stop coughing, thought I had really bad asthma and like maybe the flu. And then I woke up this one day and I could not breathe. Like I just couldn't get any air in my lungs. I couldn't stop coughing. Then I was feeling all panicky because I couldn't breathe. And I was like, maybe I'm having a panic attack. Anyway, I ended up at the hospital.
This is where it ends.
Yeah, well, I ended up at the hospital and had chest x-ray done and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it turns out I had pneumonia and they gave me some hectic antibiotics. Do you ever notice, and okay, maybe this is just me, but I feel like it's very much a female thing. Anytime you're sick and someone prescribes you antibiotics, the very first thing my brain thinks is, fuck, I'm going to get thrush. That's what I think.
A yeast infection.
Instantly. I'm like, I will get better, but I am going to get thrush. So anyway,
what's the lesser of two evils?
Pneumonia. I tossed it up and trust me, it was the pneumonia. I had these antibiotics prescribed and they were like, honestly, it was like the elixir of God. By 2 days later, I was starting to feel a bit better. And then I think we're like 10 days out. No, maybe more. Maybe like 14 days out now. And I still have a deep, heavy, chesty cough, which you may get to hear, or maybe producer Keeshia will edit it out. Who knows? But that kind of hits me every so often if I get too excited.
Are you sure you didn't have COVID? Did you do a test?
Yeah, many. I did like 4 or 5 tests and then they did PCR at the hospital as well. And it was definitely pneumonia. But also, so I had this moment, like when I say Matt really stepped up to the plate, like I think that when you're sick, it's a real indicator as to how good your partner is because some partners really, they step up, they care for you, they do the work. Other partners, they start off good and then they trail off real quick because someone being sick gets boring really fast, right? Like that's how, and I think it's an indicator of having a great partner. Now, there was this one moment where I realized, I was like, oh, Matt is a keeper. This man loves me. And let me tell you, it wasn't getting married or having children that made me realize this. You would have thought I would have been there. But I kept on coughing to the point where I was like throwing up. So and it would just hit me. And this one day I was coughing and then I started throwing up and then I threw up in the bathroom and I threw up in the sink. And if you've ever thrown up in the sink, it's kind of gross because then you got to fish out all the bits and it like who the fuck throws up in the sink?
What drain you had to, like, is it the skinny drain, the big hole drain?
No, we have we have like the tiny drain that's got like the plug over the top of it, so only water goes down to protect the plumbing. And here it was a sink full of spaghetti arrabbiata, and he was just like, he walked in.
God damn you meatballs!
He walked in and he looked at me, and you could see on his face, he was like, why the sink? The fucking toilet's right there. The toilet is right there. And he didn't say anything. And he went and he got a cup and he just patted my back. And then he stood there with a cup and a bucket and he fished it out of the sink. And I know this is very graphic and I'm very sorry if you're someone who is vomit squeamish. But I was on the floor of the bathroom that day and I was like, this man, he loves me. And I will stay in this relationship forever.
That is 100% without doubt love. But I also know that level of illness where you don't even care. Like when you're laying on the ground, like, and you're just like shitting everywhere, you're vomiting everywhere. Like when you have hectic gastro from some other country, when you're that sick, you don't care where it comes out. You're like, I could not care less. Like that's future me problem.
I think you're on your own. I think I would care regardless. I think I would care if I was doing that in front of my partner. I take that back because like 90% of women who have given birth have done a poo in front of their partner, and like you don't care. You think you will. Every single person who goes into pregnancy and birthing thinks, "Oh my God, what if I do a poo in front of my partner? God, that's embarrassing." And then as it's happening, you're like, whatever, deal with it.
Speaking of, I did try and like keep up to date with what was happening in your life. Like I did a few Google searches every now and again, see if there are any pap photos of you at the beach, just seeing like what you and the family were doing. I thought, you're cute. I'll just follow them from the paparazzi.
You can
I
call
didn't
me.
see any
You don't.
paparazzi.
I'm sorry. If you want to keep up to date with what's happening in my life, you don't have to look at the news. Believe it or not.
I didn't. I decided, look, the time difference was too hard. I wasn't going to call you and wake you up. It was just like a fleeting moment of I'll give you a Google. And the first thing that comes up, which I'm so honored to know, was that you, Laura Byrne, did a 4.5 kilo shit and told Matt about it. That was the headline of the Daily Mail article. And I was like, what the fuck have I missed? Explain that.
So Matt and I created a skit video. The skit video was very much satire, but I think some people don't understand what satire is, and that's okay. You know, I don't know geography. Some people don't know satire. So the satirical skit was around the satirical skit was around how when you first get into a relationship and you're dating, you are on absolute best behavior, right? So if you need to go to the toilet and you're only just in that initial stages of dating, you walk into the bathroom and you put music on, or you put the tap on so that they can't hear any toilet noises. You'll pad down the toilet. Like I once dated this guy who lived in a studio apartment. So his toilet was pretty much in the bedroom. There was nowhere to hide. There was nothing. I used to have to ask him to go out on the balcony and I would pad that toilet down. It was like, yeah, you go to the extreme lengths so that you don't let them hear your toilet noises. And then not for everyone, I appreciate this. There's two types of people. We've established that in the past. But for some of us, you get into a comfy relationship, things change, you let yourself go, and you'll like no longer do you put music on or put the tap on or whatever. You'll walk out and you'll describe like what a cathartic experience it was. Anyway, that was the skit. It was very funny. Ha ha ha. Also got like some crazy like 5 million views on Instagram. So it did really well.
People love shit, Laura. People love bowel movements.
If there's one thing that we can all relate to, everybody shits, believe it or not. Anyway, so we did this skit, very funny. And then I wake up the next day to an article that my mum has sent me because my mum has not seen the skit yet. So my mum sends me an article and it says this. Laura Byrne shocks her fans as she reveals she did the biggest poo of her entire life and lost 4 kilos. This entire article, now once again, the journalist who wrote this has done me dirty a few times. Her name's Martajari. She's written a couple of articles and it seems like she misses satire and humor a bit because, or she doesn't like me. It could be the second, I think.
No, she gets it.
She's written a few. Yeah, she's written a few articles that have truly done me dirty over the years. But anyway, this one, it was written as though the skit was completely truth and verbatim. So it outlined me coming out saying like, you know, do you want to come see it? Me talking about poo to Matt. And the whole article was written as though I had just gotten onto Instagram and done like stories and been like, hey, everyone, I did a poo, which clearly didn't happen. But the internet now thinks that that did happen and that will live in perpetuity on the Daily Mail for the rest of my life. Anyway.
You could print that out and put it on the wall right next to the urine shower. You had some banger articles, to be fair.
I'm pretty sure Marta wrote that one too, to be honest.
No, I think she did.
I think she did.
Marta,
she fucking hates me.
Marta hates me.
Marta, what did I ever do to you, hey? What did I do to you? Come on.
Come on, Marta. You haven't done a 4 kilo shit. Come on, we've all done one.
Don't be jealous.
I have really strong feels about that. Ben's bathroom, he's only got one, and it's one of those 3-way bathrooms, you know, where like the bedroom goes, it's an ensuite, but it's not an ensuite. It also services the rest of the house. Like there's multiple ways in. And it was really hard at the start because I was like, you know, I don't want to poo in front of you. I don't want you here, but you can literally lay in bed and hear me. It's gotten a bit better now. I will be like, yo, going to do a poop, hold the line. But I still don't fart in front of him, right? Like I just refuse to do it. I'll always walk away, walk into another room, drop the bomb, so he doesn't even, I don't say I'm going to do it. It's always a secret. Anyway, last night I was just feeling unwell and I was like, oh, I really need to do a fart. And I was like, I knew it was not going to be a good one. You know, when you know, I was like, it's going to be a stink bomb. So I walked out of the bedroom into the kitchen to drop my bomb. And then my plan was to come back, but I didn't know Ben followed me. So Ben was following me to the kitchen to get a drink. And I walked to the far end of the kitchen, turned around, and he was there. And I was like, what are you doing? And it was a bomb. Like, this was not good. I was like, what are you doing? Go back to bed. I can bring you what you want. He's like, I'm just going to get a drink of water. Walked over.
You're like,
and
you
I
don't
could
want
just
it.
tell
It's noxic. It's gas now. The water is contaminated.
Oh, it just hit him. And he was like, what's that smell? And I'm like, I don't smell anything. And he's like, yeah, what is that? And I was like, oh, ew, what is that? And then I pretended to find a dead chicken wing thing, like a leftover chicken wing. I was like, oh my God, it's this leftover chicken wing, and then threw it out. And that's how I covered my fart, because I said that we dropped chicken on the ground. I'm still so far from telling him the truth that if he'd walked into it, it was like an atomic bomb. I had to pretend that we just dropped food down the side of the couch. He'll probably listen to this now and he'll know. So anyway, it's out in the open. I dropped a bomb. Sorry, Ben.
You guys just need to like live more liberally. You need to get to a point of comfort and relaxation with your partner. It's better for the relationship. It brings you closer. It makes you love each other more. You understand each other.
Yeah.
I know Matthew Johnson inside and out. I can say that.
Well, while you were in bed dying and writing your will and last testament, I had a very important meeting. So I was meeting Ben's family for the very first time. And my family had obviously flown over from Australia. They were meeting Ben's family for the first time. But it was the first time in person. I actually have, unfortunately, met Ben's family before. I told this at the live show, so some of you might have heard it. But I die a little every time that I think about this. Ben and I obviously are on different sides of the world. So every time we FaceTime, it's always when I'm getting ready in the morning. So I will put the iPad up and I'll go and have a shower. We'll have breakfast, we'll have coffee. We'll get ready for work, all of that, just like normal life while the other person's on the iPad. Anyway, one morning I've stripped off and I'm stark as naked, just about to get into the shower. And the iPad starts ringing and it's Ben. So I'm like, perfect timing. Like, my titties are out. They're looking full. It was probably that time of the month. I had great lighting. It wasn't too overhead. It was just like really choice, like for a nudie FaceTime.
So descriptive. Thank you.
So I put the iPad down on the bathroom sink and I lean out of the frame to turn the shower on as I've pressed pick up. So it's loading as I'm out of frame, turning the shower on. And as I lean back into frame, just like really vibing myself because I feel like I'm on point, I look at the screen and there's Ben and he's staring back at me. And right next to Ben is Ben's mum and Ben's dad and Ben's sister. And Ben had decided, without any prior acknowledgement, to do a family FaceTime at my shower time. So I'm standing there looking them in the eyes. My titties are looking them in the eyes. They're looking me in the eyes. I panic, roll to the ground, and I'm like, this is how I end. Like, bury me right now. I'm completely dead. And I just sat there in silence. And I yelled out from the bottom and they were like, don't worry, Britt, we didn't see anything. And I'm like, oh, please. Like, who says that? You only say that unless you saw something, right? Like, no one's like, oh, you don't have anything in your teeth. You know, you have something in your teeth.
Do you know the part about this that I think is great, the reason why they were in such confined space, because it's not normal. No one's ever like huddling around a phone with their entire family being like, let's FaceTime Britt. They were in a car together. They were all driving. And so Ben had just like picked up and put up FaceTime and put the phone into the car holder.
Yes.
And then up Britt's pops, and so do the rest of Britt. So yeah, I mean, that was part of our live show. That was one of the stories that Britt shared. But this was the first time when you went overseas this trip. It was the first time that you got to meet all of Ben's family together and also all your family coming over and having this big combined Seagrass Hockley moment. And
before I tell you about that, the reason they were all in the car together was because they were going to like his grandparents' grave. It was like a grave visit. Oh my God, I feel bad even saying that.
Bury me now.
I'm going to hell. Anyway, it was such a wholesome Christmas for us, like a wholesome family meet. So my family were here for 2 weeks and his family came over for about 5 days. We all just hung out, got along like a house on fire. It was really nice because you always hope that you like your in-laws and that your families get along. And like, that's the goal, right? Like, there's nothing worse than if somebody doesn't want someone else in the family.
Well, look, I think everybody has kept up to date with what has seemed like an exceptionally beautiful holiday. I know, and I don't say this with sarcasm, I say this genuinely. When I was dying in bed, I was like looking at your Instagram, and normally I would look at it and be jealous and I'd be like, you fucking mole, look at this beautiful time you're having. But I was looking at it and living vicariously through the fact that you actually looked like you were enjoying yourself whilst I was not. Scotland looks cold, kind of miserable. I'm not jealous of that part. You did then go to the Maldives. I'm going to say it wrong. Maldives.
It is Maldives, not Maldives, not Maldives, Maldives, to be sure. Yeah, and I know because that kicked up a big stink on Instagram.
Well, it's always good
no,
to just ask the locals when you're there, say, how do you say it? Because they'll tell you if you're saying it wrong.
I'm going to call it the Maldives because that's how Australians say it. The Maldives for me were a place that have been on my bucket list since as long as I can remember. And I always wondered if things were photoshopped there or like, it almost seems too postcard and too good to be true. But hands down, it has to be the most spectacular place I've ever seen. Like it was wildly beautiful. There is nowhere that you could look that was not like a postcard, like a picture. Like you could just pull your phone out, take a picture, and it looks like someone has photoshopped the most magical island. So we had an incredible time. But it was just like the holiday of a lifetime. I don't feel like I will ever have a holiday that good again.
When you say it's been on your bucket list, I feel like every single person who's ever owned a Pinterest has a photo of the Maldives pinned somewhere. Yeah, I think it's on everyone's bucket list.
It's always the place. The reason I didn't go, it's always the place you want to go with someone like a romantic, special friend. Like it's not the sort of place you want to go as a backpacker or with friends. For me, like I always was like, I am not going to go to the Maldives until I'm gone with a lover. Like it was just on my checklist. It was on my mood board, my internal mood board. I've never had an actual mood board. So I waited all this time until I could go there with a lover, and it was the most romantic place you've ever seen.
Okay, well, there was something that I wanted to talk to you about because I think this is something that's very, well, one, I mean, obviously you've just experienced it, but it's very relatable because I think that this is something that a lot of us do to our friends who have been in long-term or seemingly happy relationships. So whilst you were overseas, there was one evening where I was lying in bed and I looked at Instagram and you had just uploaded photos. And obviously, like, you've been over there with Ben for a long time. And before you left, we had a bit of a conversation where I said, do you think potentially Ben could propose on this trip? And you said, I don't think so, but like maybe, who fucking knows, So there was this one evening, you were going to an underwater restaurant, you were dressed in a little white dress, I saw you had your nails done. I had excitement for you. Like I genuinely felt like, oh my gosh, maybe Ben's going to propose. And I hadn't really thought about that prior to that moment because, I guess in my mind, I think like you guys haven't been together that long. It's been a year, but obviously things have progressed quickly. And I know that you've had many conversations around where you want your life to be. And then I saw this couple of stories and I was like, oh my God, Brittany is getting engaged tonight. And I sent you a message at that time, which was like ring, ring, emoji, like, are you engaged yet? ? And I sent it. And then I very quickly after sending it realized and had this moment where I was like, I should not have sent that. And we haven't really discussed this yet, but I had a moment where I thought like that was not the right thing to do. And I would love to unpack this a little bit because I know you have some feelings about it. And I think that this is something that so many people have experienced in their long-term happy relationships where well-meaning friends weigh in on when or if an engagement is going to happen. And then I'd love to talk about the impact that has on your ability to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because on one hand, because I got it so much, right? Left, right, and center. I was getting it from just the comments from whomever, from followers. I was getting them, people I know and, people I don't know, DMs, friends like you were messaging me and sliding into the DMs. And the thing is, it's not just the are you engaged yet, but it's the when are you going to get engaged? It's at Ben propose already. At Brittany, when is he going to propose? As if I know that answer. And then the best friends like you, literally while I'm in the white dress on the date, has he proposed yet? And I'm like, okay, motherfucker. Now I'm on a date in a white dress. He hasn't yet proposed. Is he going to propose? Can I eat my second clam chowder meal that's about to come out, or should I push it to the side? I don't want to have clam chowder breath if he's about to propose. Oh my God, it sent me into a downward spiral.
Thank you so much for ruining my evening, Laura, is really what you wanted to write back to me.
No, and it didn't ruin my evening, but it's an interesting conversation because flat out, I want to say to everybody listening right now, don't message your friend and say, are you engaged yet? Or when are you going to get engaged? Just don't do it. And the reason I say that is if it is about to happen, you don't want it spoiled, right? You don't want someone messaging you that, oh my God, I've got so much anxiety now. Is it going to happen? Do they know something that I don't? You also it adds like this, it's really hard to describe. It adds this weird pressure to not only you, like me, but to the relationship as
Mm.
well, because Ben was reading all those messages and I was reading all those messages. And before we went away, Laura, you had said to me, "Do you think he's going to propose?" And I had said, "Look, I don't think so. I don't think this is the time. I'm going to say no, but we are going to be together for a while in some pretty romantic places. So I guess anything is possible." So I had like the whole time, I'd always had this one little, that white dress. I was like, this will be my backup engagement dress if I feel like it's going to happen.
You're
And
like
I never felt
you're like, I don't think it's going to happen, but it doesn't hurt to be prepared.
fail to prepare is preparing to fail.
I love that. Put that
So
on your
it was
2024 quote calendar, everybody. That's what that is. Put that on your mood board.
And then what it does was, because it wasn't just me and it was public and Ben was seeing it. And I'm lucky that Ben and I are very open with our communication. One thing we're very good at is being really honest. And, I was getting flooded with the questions and we had a really honest conversation about it. He had said, "Look, I've seen all the comments and I've seen your DMs." And I said, "Yeah." Like, I just brushed it off as a joke. I was like, "Yeah, like so many people are asking if I'm going to get engaged. Isn't that crazy?" Like,
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
I was like, so silly, but everyone's saying it. And then he was just like, "Well, do you feel like that? Like, did you think that?" And as soon as he said that, I was like, "Oh, it's definitely not happening," because he wouldn't be bringing up the conversation. And I was really honest, and I said, "Look, no, but we're in the Maldives, and it's the most romantic trip we've ever been on, and we're having a blast. So like, it wouldn't have shocked me if you did it, but it wasn't expected." And we just had this conversation that he felt really bad. He felt like a lot of pressure put on him from everybody else, that maybe I had read these comments and DMs and gotten my hopes up, and then he wasn't going to do it. He wasn't planning on doing it. So then every day he felt like he was letting me down.
Mm.
It's a really weird feeling. And I tried to communicate that. I tried to say, "Look, you're not letting me down. Like, we can't let other people's opinions pressure us into something. And also, I don't want to let these other questions put a dampener on our holiday." But truth be told, you can't help but feel this added level of pressure. And it just makes me think about, like, we've only been together 14 months. Makes me think about my friends that have been together. Like, I have friends that were together 7 years, and constantly everyone is asking her, "When's he going to propose? Why don't you guys just get married?" And it's really the bane of her existence, right? Because she's like, "I really want him to propose. I'm beside myself waiting." And it just gave her so much anxiety every time somebody said, "Why don't you just get married?" As if, like, she can just pull a rabbit out of a hat. And it made me think back to all these people in these like really long-term relationships. It's not it's not a positive thing to do to a friend. Like, you mean to be really good willing, but it's not.
Well, I think, and my thought about this, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I think as much as it's something that you have experienced, I also think it's something that's very like, so many people can relate to this. Anyone who's been in a long-term happy relationship where their friends and family, very well-meaning, think that they should be at a point of getting engaged, have so much excitement for their friend that they want to share that. And I think it's a different case if you bring it up with your friends and you want to discuss, "Oh my God, do you think he's going to propose? Do you not? Like, do you think she's going to propose?" I think that that's totally fine. But if you're the one who's bringing it up to your friend because you're excited for them, and then you're implanting that idea into their head, it's almost like this conversation is like the precursor to the "when are you having kids" conversation. And we've spoken
Yeah.
about this loads in the past. We all know now that that is not an okay thing to speak about or to talk to, unless someone brings it up specifically. You don't ask someone when they're having children. And I mean, I don't think that when are you getting engaged is as bad, because obviously there's many reasons why people can't and don't want to have children. Some of those reasons are quite traumatic. And so bringing up kids can have a much more detrimental impact. But I do think this conversation around engagement, when you ask the question, all it does, especially when your friend's like gone away on a beautiful holiday, all it's going to do is either add pressure, it's going to change their ability to enjoy it, it's going to have them on the lookout. And I guess like ultimately you asking a question that is well-meaning, that kind of like sits within a little bit of a gossip feeling, all that does is it impacts the other person and leaves them maybe feeling disappointed. And I even say this from my own experience, because when Matt proposed, I was 7.5 months pregnant and we'd gone to Fiji on a holiday. Like, if there was ever going to be a time, it was probably then. And everybody had said the same to me. And I think I woke up every day on that holiday thinking, is this the day, you know? And I guess I had definitely had expectations and had hopes. Did it come as a surprise? Yes, because I didn't know for certain. But had I left that holiday and Matt hadn't proposed, I would have felt really disappointed. And I guess that was what I reflected on when I asked you the question, Britt. And I think it's something, you know, that like so many people would have experienced, because I realized that I was adding to the exact same thing that I felt when I was in that situation, you know, 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago.
Totally. One thing that was funny that I will say is that there was this one night we're having this really romantic dinner. Like, it could have been the place of a proposal, right? It was just the two of us on a private beach with private chefs. It's like this added extra that you buy. When I say private beach, like the resorts have sections, you know, that are private, but candles everywhere, like candles coming out of the beach. It was insanely romantic. Right on the water was lapping up and it was seafood and there was wine. It was beautiful. And these people walked past us on the wharf and they started going, woo, and clapping, because Ben and I had started to cry and were leaned in and hugged each other. So from the outside, you'd look at us like a few tears running down our face, hugging, romantic. So they thought we got engaged. But we were talking about our dead grandparents. And it was so funny. Like, the moment couldn't have been any different or any funnier, because they thought we were getting engaged because they thought they were happy tears, but we were talking about our dead grandparents.
The moral of the story is,
you never know.
Britt, something I wanted to talk to you about that has happened, I mean, in the past couple of weeks whilst we've been away. Now, we all know the Golden Globes has had so much airtime over the past few weeks. I feel like every time I open up Instagram, it's Golden Globes chat. Now, the one thing,
which is weird, because is anyone actually still watching this shit?
No one watches it. That's the thing. People only watch it on recap through social media, and then they read the articles. And you see like one little spicy bit of like a side eye from Taylor Swift, and then you see some shitty failed joke. And that's your entire understanding of the Golden Globes in a recap. And then we look at like all the cool dresses.
Best and worst dress. It's like those stupid lists that you see pop up everywhere. Who's hot and who's not? It's Golden Globes.
Do you know what? I say this. I would love to know if anyone actually like sat down with a cup of tea and watched the whole thing. Like, I would love to know if those people still exist, but maybe they do. They must exist. But anyway, I don't want to talk about the Golden Globes. I want to talk about the sequel to the Golden Globes, the thing that not enough people are talking about, and that is the Critics' Choice Awards. Now, the reason for this is because if you've seen this, so Chelsea Handler was the presenter. She was the main host for the Critics' Choice Awards. And what you might not know is that Chelsea Handler is actually the ex of Joe Coy. Now, Joe Coy is the guy who was hosting the Golden Globes, the one who flopped so sensationally from the minute he stepped on stage to 11 minutes when his terrible monologue finished. It was a flop. And Chelsea Handler did the exact opposite of him and also kind of threw her ex under the bus at the same time.
It was hard to watch, wasn't it?
Wait, which one?
Joe. I feel awkward thinking about it, like thinking about the silence and the flop and how like offensive he was on the stage and how much he would have wanted to crawl into a hole. Like, when I think back, I feel gross.
So, I mean, to give you guys a little bit of a recap, if you haven't and you aren't across his speech from the Golden Globes, basically it started off and it was very gender stereotyped. He really took aim at Barbie, and this was one of the things he said.
Oppenheimer and Barbie are competing for cinematic box office achievement. Oppenheimer is based on a 721-page Pulitzer Prize-winning book about the Manhattan Project. And Barbie is on a plastic doll with big boobies.
Any grown man using the word boobies is an instant ick. The thing that I wanted to talk about with the Critics' Choice Award, and the reason why I think it should be getting more airtime, is because of all the things that Chelsea Handler did that were in the complete opposite to the way that Joe handled his speech. Now, from the moment that she stepped on stage, she spoke about the incredible successes of women throughout 2023 within the industry.
And I am so excited to be hosting for the second year in a row, especially because this was a huge year for women.
Now, the thing that really also stood out in this is you guys might remember there was this one part where when Joe was on stage, he was absolutely flailing with his jokes. They weren't landing. And instead of being self-deprecating when you're a comedian, I feel like that's the way to best handle a situation where maybe jokes aren't landing well. Instead of him doing that, he threw his writers under the bus.
Key moment in Barbie is when she goes from perfect beauty to bad breath, cellulite, and flat feet. Or what casting directors call character actor. Some I wrote, some other people wrote.
Chelsea, on the other hand, when her jokes were succeeding and she was getting such a laugh from her audience, instead of throwing her writers under a bus, what she did was she thanked her writers.
Thank you for laughing at that. My writers wrote it.
Now, I think the reason why this is so pointed, and I truly loved it so much, and there's been a lot of chatter about this on TikTok at the moment too, is simply because the fact that they once upon a time dated, the fact that they have a lot of history, and they dated for quite a while, they've been friends for even longer than that, it does make you question, like, is it okay to throw your ex under the bus and to use them in a way that makes them the butt of the joke when you have seen that they have failed so monumentally at something within a public space?
I mean, there's no more of a public space and like a throwdown for your ex than if you're hosting the Critics' Choice and a week before they flop to the Golden Globes. Like, it doesn't get bigger and better and more of a slam down than that. I think the difference is Joe, whether it was him or his writers, he was just punching down a lot at really low hanging fruit. And I feel like Chelsea still took her swings at people, but I think she did it quite cleverly. Like, it does make you wonder, though, is it okay because of the context? Because the whole idea around Chelsea Handler's hosting was to promote women and to throw it back in everyone else's faces that is perpetually, including Joe 1 week ago, perpetually bringing women down. Does it make her comments about men and how hot they are and throwing them around like a meatball, does it make it okay or not? Because it's a fine line.
Just for some context, if you haven't listened to the speech, we'll link it in the show notes so that you can listen to the whole thing. But basically one part of Chelsea's speech, because it was very much celebrating women, but there was one part where she made a joke and it was in reference to It was kind of like making a joke but not making a joke about Leonardo and his tendency to date very young women. So what she said was...
And this is where most comedians would make some sort of May-December joke about Leonardo DiCaprio's dating preferences, but I'm not going to do that because I actually have the same affliction as Leo, but in the opposite direction. I prefer my men old and hot. Men who have been around since the railway was invented. Speaking of which, Robert De Niro and Harrison Ford are here.
I guess the thing that's been quite controversial on TikTok and the reason why people have been up in arms is because the question has been asked, what if a man was to say the things and objectify in the way that Chelsea Handler has objectifying Robert De Niro and Harrison Ford? And to that I say, boo fucking who? I don't feel sorry for them. And the reason why is because everyone's like, imagine if a man said these things. We don't need to imagine. That's why she's flipping the script, because these things have been said in many ways about women for so many years. And I think her...
But then does that make it right? Two wrongs don't make a right.
I
If
don't
we're
care.
If we are fighting for people not to say this, do you think the right thing is to be saying this? And I'm just, I think it was funny. I laughed at the whole thing. But when someone pointed out that if a man did say that, I was like, you know what? Imagine if a man was up there and said, oh, I would love to throw Margot Robbie around like a meatball. She's so hot. It would be up in arms.
I guess the reason why I disagree with it so deeply, and I know that there will be people who feel the same, who go, oh, well, a woman shouldn't be making sexist jokes in the same way that a man can't. The reason why I don't care as much is because it comes down to this idea of punching up or punching down in a joke. And we've spoken about this loads in the podcast in the past. But someone like Chelsea Handler making a joke at Harrison Ford or Robert De Niro's expense is not her punching down on them. She is still punching up because they are very successful. They are well-established men within an industry that has always favored men, and women are still working for the same equality. That exact sentiment was reflected in Chelsea Handler's speech where she talked about Greta Gerwig.
With Barbie, Greta became the highest grossing female director of all time. Which can only mean one thing. Hollywood executives are currently debating whether Greta's worth taking a second chance on.
So I guess the thing is that this whole speech...
That, to be clear, that was my favorite quote from Chelsea Handler of the entire evening.
Yeah, and I guess that it comes back to this idea that it's flipping the script, right? It was a moment of really celebrating what women have achieved, but it was flipping the script and the narrative on men within the room as well. And I think it was done in a very tongue-in-cheek way. There's been many conversations around women attending award ceremonies and only being asked about what they're wearing or who they're wearing instead of being asked about anything to do with their accolades from the actual shows in which they've been a part of. And this just, I think, really unpacks the issues of the industry. And she's making fun of that throughout her entire speech.
I mean, it does come back to the question you asked at the beginning, Laura. If you had the opportunity to take such a public swipe at your ex, would you take it? Because I mean, we have those opportunities and I don't feel like we've ever taken a public swipe.
Are you living in fantasy land? I think I reckon this whole entire podcast was a swipe at our exes to start with. I mean, we grew as people and we evolved. I'm pretty sure episode 3 was so I dated a sociopath.
Yeah, but no one knows who he is, what job he did or anything. That's not a public swipe. That's Chelsea Handler. The whole world was watching. Like, it doesn't get more public
That
than
is true. That is true. I do feel like I've taken quite a few public swipes of my ex. But you know what? I don't feel bad because I do sometimes feel like he deserved it. But I have grown as a person. We've been doing this podcast for a very long time now, and I'm much more sort of censored in how I go about it. But look, I think when it comes to that sort of industry, when you work in entertainment, when you work in comedy especially, I think you have to be as good at taking it as what you are as giving it. So if you are going to host the Golden Globes on such a public scale and your ex is going to host the Critics' Choice a week later, if you flop, I don't think that you are off the table for fair game. I think that it's almost like it is such good comedy material. It is such comedy gold that of course she's going to go there and of course she's going to take the opportunity. And the thing that I keep coming back to about Chelsea Handler and the reason why I enjoyed the speech so much was because of the ways in which she created the comedy. She didn't punch down on anyone. She didn't, even the times where she, yes, made people feel uncomfortable, it was still like, I mean, look at this guy, he's a hottie. And I guess like I would be so interested to know how everybody else feels about it and whether sexist jokes in the flip, like in the reverse, when a female is being sexist about a male, whether it is less bad, whether it is a little bit more okay than when it happens in the stereotype, which is men being sexist towards women. Because that is how I feel. And sometimes I struggle to articulate the reason why. And I know that there shouldn't be two different sets of standards, but I do think it comes down to this punching up, punching down. I also think it comes down to the very real victimization. Like women have been victims of, as we know, sexual violence, sexual assault, physical assault. Women at the hands of male violence is a very, very real issue. And so any type of sexist joke kind of leans in and perpetuates that, whereas men are not the victim of women. And so when women make jokes, it sits within the world of being a joke because it's not real, because it doesn't happen on a day-to-day. So I guess that's why I feel differently about the two. But I'd love to know how everyone else feels. So feel free to jump on socials because I know that this will probably stir up some mixed feelings for some people.
Well, from the dawn of time, from the very first episode of Life Uncut, we have done Accidentally Unfiltered, our most embarrassing stories, your most embarrassing stories, because we low-key get off on it. So we have some brilliant ones today, but we do want to ask you, if you're new to the podcast and you have had one of those moments where you're like, I want to die right now, crawl into a hole, be buried, whatever it is, that moment where you feel like you want to be anywhere other than the place you are, we want to hear about it. So please write in your Accidentally Unfiltered to Life Uncut Podcast Instagram, or you could email us, hello@lifeuncutpodcast. Either way, we want to hear your stories, and I have a killer one for you today.
I want it to be at the point where, as embarrassing shit is happening to you, you're not even thinking about the fact that you're embarrassed. The first thing you're thinking is, I need to send this to Laura and Britt. And you
People
get straight
do
into my
that.
DMs
Wild.
as it's happening. I want real time embarrassing shit,
People are like, I've locked myself in the bathroom right now. This is happening every we speak. Like they're live streaming it to us.
which is what I'm here for. This is what I want. This is the point
I'm
in the
sorry.
relationship that we have with you guys that we want.
Yeah, when you are having sex and queefing, we want you to be thinking about us. That's the moment. Okay. I was lying on my bed, my butt hanging out because I had been wearing a dress. So it had sort of flipped up my back, you know, where you're just kicking your legs, enjoying your day. My partner walks past and goes, oh, you have some fluff. Hang on a minute, I'll get it. Leans down and proceeds to yank my tampon string out of my undies. How do we live in a day and age where a man sees a string coming out of a pair of undies and thinks it is a bit of fluff?
Nah.
How? It's 2024.
I've told this story many years ago, and I think you've forgotten it. Like when we very, very first started this podcast, when I was 17, my first boyfriend, he was so lovely. He was so nice. Genuinely, I think I peaked with niceness in my relationships at 17. Then it went rapidly downhill, and then I got Matt and he was nice again. But he was nice, but he was so unaware about the female body. And that was because he'd never been exposed to one prior to me. And there was this one day we were at the beach. I was wearing a black bikini. Didn't have white stitching. There was nothing white on the bikini at all. But I got out of the water after going for a swim, and he was sitting down and I was standing up. We're there with a group of friends. And I walked up to him and I had my towel wrapped around my shoulders and my bikini bottoms and my legs were like hanging out the bottom of this little towel. And he goes, oh, babe, you've got a string. Reaches between my legs and yanks it and pulls out my tampon, but into my swimmers. So it didn't come out, thank God, because I think I would have had to have died. We would have been doing the podcast from the cemetery. But honestly, it was just floating in my swimmers, and he knew what he had done, and I knew what he had done.
Because you feel the resistance.
And he felt that tug. He felt that boop, but also been in water for a long time, so it was quite buoyant, slipped out a bit easier than it should have. Anyway, I just remember having intense eye contact with him because I didn't want to make a deal, and I was like, in my eyes, I was like, what the fuck have you done? And then I went to the bathroom, fixed myself up, came back, and we pretended like it never happened. We never spoke about it because that's what you do when you're 17. You ignore anything that's uncomfortable forever.
I would have had to have broken up at 17. Like that's relationship ending at that age, I reckon.
Yeah. Anyway, fucking humiliating.
You know, I reckon that happens all the time. I reckon there are so many people listening to this podcast right now that have had someone try and pull, quote unquote, a thread out of their vagina.
I don't think it happens all the time. I think it happens quite rarely. I would like to say I think that this is an uncommon circumstance. If you guys do have an Accidentally Unfiltered, if you do have an embarrassing story, if something wild has happened to you in your life, slide on into the DMs, put Accidentally Unfiltered at the top, and maybe we will read it out next week. Now, we never finish a Tuesday episode without our suck and our sweet, our highlight and our low light of the week that's passed. It's been 4.5 weeks since we've seen you guys or heard you guys or been inside your ears. So I feel like there's been lots that's been happening. For me, not so much, because my suck is that I spend all day, every day in bed. Actually, I would say my biggest suck would have been, do you know what? I've got two because it happens simultaneously. It's the sickness, which you guys already know, but it's also the fact.
Oh my God, I thought you just said it's syphilis.
That would suck.
That does suck.
Syphilis sucks. Like that's not a fun thing to get. So like that would be it, but I don't have syphilis. The pneumonia definitely sucked. But my other suck for the week is, now if you guys listened at pre-break, you might remember that I took Lola off the dummy. The whole plan was, and I remember saying, I am going to break her like a Brumby. That were my words. So I took her off the dummy. The plan was she was going to come off the dummy. We were going to like go through that period. We are going to move her into her sister's room, and then Marley and Lola were going to share a bedroom. And that was my grand plan, because I have these beautiful ideas that my two daughters are going to wake up in the morning and play with each other and love sharing a room. Anyway, so we took her off the dummy. that was a bit hairy for a while, but things kind of panned out okay. And we thought that we were at a point where we could move her into the same room. So we did it. The first week it was fine. The last 2 weeks, however, shit's really hit the fan. So they are in the same room now, but they're also in the same bed. So now they sleep in the same single bed every single night, which means that they wake each other up about 5 times per night. And now I know if you're a sleep therapist or someone who's listening to this, you're going to want to slide into my DMs. I'm not at the point now, right this moment, where I can handle help because I'm living in deep denial. But I'm not sleeping, they're not sleeping, and I can't deal with the fight that's going to be required to put them into separate beds again because they love each other so deeply.
In the same bed.
Because it's a single bed. And it's very small.
But they're the size of like a football.
They are, but they kick each other. They're kicking footballs. So they wake each other up all through the night. And so this morning, 5 a.m., Lola has woken up early. She's then woken her sister up and they've both run into the bedroom, our bedroom, to get into bed with us. And I was like, this has really gotten out of fucking control. Anyway.
Put one in the kennel.
Yeah. So my suck is that I thought I was going to break my child like a Brumby, but she broke me. And that's how it always works with parenting.
And so now they just sleep in your bed. You've completely given up.
Yeah. And okay, and my sweet for the week, firstly, my biggest sweet is that we are back. I have enjoyed having time off, but I have missed you guys. I have missed the pod. I have missed you, Britt, even though I'm only seeing you through a screen. I can't fucking wait for you to get back here. But I'm so happy that we're back and that we're back to normal programming. And let's see what 2024 has in store.
Wow, that was like a speech you've signed off on Martin Luther King. And let's see what 2024 has.
Because let me tell you, it is
me, Martin Luther King.
Let me tell you, it is not the year of health. That's what I've established. 2024 is not the year of health, no matter what you lie to yourself about.
Slow start. It is the year of health because I mean, we're going to talk about this on another episode, but I have dedicated this year to the year of health. Let's talk about it maybe on Thursday. I guess this is the stuff, right, when people post only the highlights on their social media, is I have been very unwell here. When I say unwell, my migraines have been next level. They've never been so bad in my life. And, you know, in the Maldives, they're actually really bad. And there was one night I was up the whole night vomiting, my feet in the hot bath. I was trying to do everything. I'd taken painkillers and Ben stayed up the whole night with me, keeping my hair out of the toilet and like rubbing my neck while I was in the bath. And he was really great. But my migraines have been out of control to the point that I'm like, okay, I need to go and see a neurologist. Like this has gone too far. And I know I've spoken about it on the past to you guys. Like a lot of you know I've been a headache sufferer, but it's to the point where I'm like, something's not right. Like something, and maybe it's hormonal with aging or post all my egg freezing. I don't know. But my suck has been my migraines, and I'm going to get that sorted as soon as I get back to Australia. My sweet, probably the same, Laura. Like I'm just frothing being back with you guys. I think that this has been our life for so long, three times a week for 4 years, that when you go on holiday and you have a little break, you miss your routine and you miss every day and you miss speaking to each other. Like I miss seeing you, Laura and Keeshia, and I miss talking to you guys. So it's really nice to be back and seeing you and having a laugh again. And I feel like I haven't seen friends in a long time because I've been over here just with Ben and the neighbors, like the psychic neighbors next door, Alex and Eugene. They're my only friends here. Obviously Sheridan's in Edinburgh, an hour away. But it's nice to have that connection again, even though it's through the screen. So I'm just pumped to be back. And also, I'm excited to see what 2024 brings.
The year of health. Anyway, guys, that is it from us. If you've loved the episode, please go and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to Life Uncut, but you listen every week or you want to know when a new episode's coming out, just go and hit the plus sign in the corner. So if you love the content and you want to hear more of it, please subscribe, share it with a friend, and you know the drill.
Tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love because
we love love.